Dr. Mike Carberry here from Advanced Medical Integration, and I talked to you a lot about the treatment side of things and about the healthcare side of the equation, but today I want to focus on the business side of the equation. You know, if you own your own practice, that practice is a business, and business follows certain rules and principles that if you don't follow them, you can get in trouble with business. I mean, trouble financially and not being able to survive as a business. So let's talk about that in this video. There's a lot of essential things to a business, and one essential thing that's in a business is purpose. Now, I talk a lot about purpose, and some of you are going, oh, here he goes again. He's going to go on this whole diatribe about purpose. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to touch on the reason, the business reason about purpose. So if you read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he emphasizes that one of the most common traits of the most 500 successful people in his time, the early 20th century, was that they had a purpose, a theme or a reason for business. You look at companies like McDonald's. McDonald's has a purpose. It had a purpose when it first got started, and it's evolved a little bit, but that purpose was to bring hot food that had a good taste, you know, didn't say nutritious, it said good taste, to families so that they can afford to take their kids to dinner and have it to be a little event. If you're on the highway, you could pull over, you can get quick food, get right back on the highway. If you want to take your kids out to dinner because you've been eating in every night during the weekend, if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. The last thing you want to do is go into a restaurant and have the kids screaming and bouncing off the walls, waiting for the waitress and waiting for the food. Whereas McDonald's, you walk up to the counter, you order your food, and it's delivered to you hot in about 2 minutes or less. And it's perfect for families that want to get that food into the kids so the kids have a good time out to dinner, and it's a good bonding thing for the family. So that was McDonald's purpose. And you know, they've even evolved a little bit where they're trying to introduce more nutritious foods into their lines because businesses change. And if you don't evolve with the changing times, you're going to dry up on the vine. So it's essential to have a purpose. Walmart has a purpose. Walmart is the largest employer in the United States. My brother-in-law is in the food industry, and he was actually at a food conference. He's the vice president of one of the largest dairy and egg companies on the East Coast, and he's vice president of marketing. He said he was at this food show, and when he saw me, he said, "You're never going to believe this," because we like to talk business a lot. But he says, Walmart is getting in the retail food business. And this is when Walmart first started getting into the grocery business. And he said they were at our food conference, and they had like hundreds of them running around in Walmart uniforms, so it looked like you're in a Walmart store, but they were executives. And he said they had this little area set up with you know, the partition walls, 6-foot-high partition walls. And he said every 20 minutes, a group of them would go back in there and they'd have a meeting. They said the meeting would go on for about 15 minutes, and at the end, the first time this happened, it startled everybody, but it happened all day long. And he said every time they ended a meeting, the speaker would then engage the Walmart people in that cubicle and say, "Give me a W." And they'd give him a W. And give me an A, give me an L, give me an M, give me an A, give me an R, give me a T. Who's number one? The customer. And he said when everybody expected him to say Walmart, and when they said the customer, he said everybody's hair stood up on their arms. They were like, whoa, I didn't expect that. And he said to me, as a vice president of marketing, who knew that Walmart had a purpose? And they do have a purpose. That's why they're the largest employer in the United States. All businesses need a purpose. When you have your purpose, and you need to identify what that purpose is, that purpose, maybe not your purpose in life, but the purpose for that business, it has to have a reason. That business is a living entity. You have to give that a purpose and bring it to life and make sure that you know it, and that your employees know it, and that your vendors know it, and your creditors know it, and your patients know it, because that's what creates it's the beginning of creating your culture in your office. Having that theme of why you do what you do. You have to have a reason. You know, we get kind of spoiled being in healthcare. Healthcare is life-threatening. I mean, it's a life and death scenario. You know, if somebody takes care of their health, they have life. If they don't take care of their health, they have death. So it's easy to generate a purpose in this business, and we get kind of like thinking that's really not an important part of business. Au contraire, mein frère, it's one of the most important parts of business. Imagine if you were in like a pencil company. You'd have to come up with a purpose for that pencil company to be unique and different. That's called a unique selling proposition or selling standing. You have to be unique in your field so that people see a reason to buy from you. And purpose is avant-garde or paramount in that whole field. So figure out, if you don't know what it is, write down the purpose of your company. And when you know it, then have a staff meeting and go over it with your employees and make sure they know it, and do drills, practice to make sure they know it. And then make sure everybody you deal with understands what your purpose does, or what your company does, what the purpose of your company is. Have an elevator speech. An elevator speech is, if you got on an elevator with somebody and they said, well, hey, what do you do? You got like 30 seconds till you get off on your floor to tell them what your company does. So you don't want to give them something so esoteric, they're like, you get off the elevator and they go, what did he just say? You want to give them something that they go, oh, they can create with it. They can actually take it and go, I think I might need that. So here's my elevator speech. I get on the elevator and somebody says to me, what do you do? Oh, I have a medical clinic that focuses on the most common health problem in America, which is chronic degenerative arthritis and the associated postural distortions that come from that. That's it. That's like 10 seconds. And when I've said that to people, they go, posture? I have a problem with posture. Posture and arthritis go together? Yeah, they do. Immediately, they're cogniting with what I just said. So you should, when you come up with your purpose, come up with an elevator speech, and then work with your staff to know that as well. It'd be interesting to ask your staff first, what do you think your purpose is and what's the elevator speech of your company? Because what they think of you might be completely different than what you think of you. And if it is, it might be that reason why you were always kind of disjointed and didn't have the high close rate and didn't have the high retention rate, because the patients are looking at it going, what does this company even do? I don't even think anybody here knows. So it's important to have all that lined up and working with that. I'll give you another, this is a reason to train. I'll give you another reason to train, and it's tied to purpose. So when I'm in Oregon, there is a lot of coffee companies, and Starbucks came from Seattle, and Seattle's Best came from Seattle. A lot of coffee companies came from the Northwest, probably because they have a lot of cloudy days, and they need that little boost in the wintertime to keep going. But the coffee shop that I like the best is called Dutch Brothers, and it's a drive-through. It's like a freestanding, like the old, if you remember the old photo booths when you used to get your film developed, and it was in the supermarket parking lot. You drive up, you hand them your film, then you come back 2 days later and they give you your pictures. Yes, I am that old. Well, now they have coffee shops, and you pull up, and what I've noticed when I first moved out west is Dutch Brothers always had a line. There could be a Starbucks or some other coffee shop right across the street, and there's always a line at Dutch Brothers. So sure enough, I get in line, and as I get closer, first of all, they have it wired. If it's really busy, they have somebody come out of the booth with a headset on and a tablet, and they take your order. They go to halfway back in the line, they start taking the second half of the line's order. So when you get up to the front, your coffee's already ready. But every time you go there, they greet you, this college student greets you something like this. Hey man, what are you doing today? Always. It's like the first time I was there, like, that's pretty cool. So I've never seen them not do it. And I've been to a lot of different Dutch Brothers. One time I was driving to Montana. I was going on a hunting trip, and it was late at night. They were just about to close, and I pulled in. I think it was their last customer. And the guy goes, hey, dude, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm driving to Montana. Driving to Montana? Your coffee's on me. I was like, this is my coffee shop. From now on, this is where I go. And so I was talking about that as a purpose line at a business conference, and somebody from the audience came up to me and said, my daughter is a trainer for Dutch Brothers, and she actually trains that greeting, and they rehearse it. So training is an essential part of business. I remember I was at a conference one time, we were having a convention, an AMI convention, and there was a lot of doctors in the room, and I asked the question, how many of you actually have a staff meeting or train every week? Just about everybody in the room's hand went up. And I said, how many do it for at least an hour every week? A bunch of hands came down. How many do it for at least 2 hours a week? Even more hands came down. How many train for at least 3 hours a week? And there was only 3 practices left with the hands up. And when I interviewed those 3 people in the audience, they were the 3 biggest practices in the room. There's a reason they train, and there's a reason they're big. So training is an essential part of any business. I have another brother-in-law who's an attorney. He's a PI attorney. And when you're a PI attorney, very rarely do you go to court. It usually all takes place out of court. But every once in a while, he had to go to court. And every time he went to court, he would hire a company that had a mock courtroom with a mock judge and a mock jury and a mock opposing attorney. And he would actually practice his case on film for like 4 days before he went to court, because it would be too expensive for him to go in and make the mistakes in court. So training is essential in every business, every business. When I got hired by Dun & Bradstreet, I was working for a division of theirs called Reuben Donnelly, and I worked for them in sales, and it was selling advertising. So the training period was a month, and it was at their headquarters in New York, and it was filming, and it was recording, and it was performing in front of your peers, a sales call. And they would break it down and train you on it, but then it was training you on how to do sales, and you had to perform. And they wanted you to make the mistakes there at training. We were already hired. It wasn't like the job was depending upon us. We were already hired. They were training us to actually be able to do our job. So train your staff, and train your staff continually. It never stops. I'll give you another good example. If you are training and you're doing rehab, one of the stats we keep track of is the number of, the percentage of retention, or how many visits show up every week. What percentage shows up? Our goal is over 90%. So what we found is, through observation, when the stat would start to drop, hanging out in a rehab room and just listening, you would figure out why. So here's what I came up with. When patients come in on a 3-time-a-week basis, at first they're in pain, they're very motivated to do whatever you tell them to get out of pain. But our goal isn't to just get them out of pain, our goal is to fix them. And it usually goes beyond that pain threshold, or that pain period. Usually within the first month, most of the patient's pain is gone. And sometimes that care plan goes 2 or 3 months. So you have patients coming in with no pain motivator. How do you keep that retention rate high? So what I observed was, when a patient comes in, they get to know the staff. They're coming in 3 times a week. The staff have their hands on them. The staff are helping them to feel better, and they actually form a bond with them. And they become friends. They're not really friends. They're friends because they get friendly with them in the office. So what happens is, if the staff start to talk to them about friend things instead of why they're there, they have a great time while they're there. But the next time that patient's evaluating should they show up for that training or for that treatment or not, they're going, yeah, they're nice people, but I got my own friends, and I want to go out on a boat. It's a sunny afternoon. I'm going to go out on a boat today. But if you continually talk to these patients about why they're there and their progress, and you're showing them, look, we're not measuring this on pain anymore. We're measuring this on these things you're not able to do. And look, this one you weren't able to do at all, but now you're doing it at 50%. And this one you're now doing it at 75%. And here's how many points you lost on your initial exam, how many you gained back on your second one and your third exam, and you're actually just this many points away from being discharged. Now the patient's motivated to come in and follow their care plan. And it worked. When we started doing that, we started rehearsing that with the rehab staff and having them practice. And we'd say, let's practice transitioning a patient away from talking about the voice and talking about the next exercise they're going to do without upsetting the patient or making them feel like you're cold or not friendly or anything like that. A good way to acknowledge what they're saying. Oh, that's great. That was a great show. I saw that. Okay, so let me get you over here. I'm going to show you the next thing we're going to work on. You're constantly renewing in their mind why they're there. That's what drives the show-up rate up. And that can't happen just by accident. It's got to happen by training. So you have to have training in your company. Here's another thing that's very important in business, and that is overhead versus production. So I've asked this question to a lot of people. When you're trying to expand your business, what do you have to watch closer, overhead or production? Now, if you think about that, some of you are going to be tempted to say, well, overhead, because if you spend too much, you'll go out of business. Well, I guess that's possible. You could also have a safe dropped on your head or get run over by an airplane that's landing on Main Street. But the chances of that are slim. The thing you want to focus on is production. Yes, you got to keep a control on spending, but you focus your main attention on production, because you cannot expand by controlling costs. It is an impossibility. It's an impossibility. It cannot be done. You cannot expand by controlling costs. It's good to control costs while you expand, but not at the expense of the expansion. Does that make sense? Because that's very crucial. So many people get so wired, like, well, how am I going to pay for this? oh my gosh, you're going to pay for it with production. If you put your systems in place that you know people need and will benefit that person, and you know that you can deliver it in a quality way that that person is going to follow through and refer more people, you want to do more of that, not less of that. It helps the patient, it helps the society, and it helps your business. So you got to focus on an expansion, delivering more services, not services that are not needed, but you want to deliver every service that is needed, not ones that aren't needed. That backfires on you. When you start delivering services that aren't needed, if you have a patient come in, like for example, I'm going to mention this. In our team meetings, when we collaborate with all the different licenses, the nurse practitioner, the medical doctor if he's there, the chiropractor, the rehab staff, if anybody brings up insurance, that's totally counterintuitive and totally counterproductive to what you're trying to do. You're not in this for insurance. You're in this to get a patient well. Your goal is to get a patient well. If you sit down and write, my purpose is to get as much money from an insurance company as possible, you have the wrong consultant, number one, and you better watch what you do because you're probably going to get in trouble. But if you go, my purpose is to deliver a good service to help patients get to a higher level of better and to improve the health of my community, well, now you're on to something. Now that will drive people into you because they want what you have, and that's the basic essence of business. It's called supply and demand. So when you deliver what they need, not what's covered, that's a good thing. If you talk about insurance during a team meeting and you go, oh, this person has great coverage for braces, and then the next thing you know, you see that patient walking out from the next rehab visit, braced from head to toe, like, oh, see you guys later. That's not okay, and that's not good, and that's going to backfire on you. That's a short-term gain and a long-term loss. Totally guaranteed. You got to look at it that way. If you're in business, you got to look at your longevity and your viability down the road, not just in the short term. Be able to think into the future. In fact, as an executive, your job is to think into the future. If you look at it, a manager is going to look at the past to try to correct the present. A technician better be in the present, because if they're in the past, that's how accidents happen. But the executive needs to think in the future. What's tomorrow going to be like? What's the next day going to be like? What's next month going to be like? What's next year going to be like? That's your job as an executive. Too many of us put that role off and don't follow through on that role because we're so caught up in the doingness of what's happening right now. And that is the wrong action. If you get systems in place to deliver services to your patients, and you can get somebody else in there to deliver, granted, nobody delivers a service as good as you do, right? Oh, I'm the best. I can't get anybody else to do what I do because I'm the best. Well, that's great. How many people can you save? The whole world? No. So teach other people, and so they don't do it as good as you. But have a standard that they have to perform to, and then get out of the way. And now you got more time to think about the future instead of thinking about, oh, I got to do. I get on the phone a lot, and some people, oh, I have to cancel the call because I had a patient call me up and they're coming in, they're in pain. Really? I mean, did they just get hit by a bus or something? Because they should be going to the hospital for that. Chances are they're coming to you with chronic pain, and they probably had it for a long time. So if it's a new patient, I would schedule them. But they're in pain, yeah, so I would schedule them. So if you run to every person that's in pain the minute that you meet them, you're going to burn yourself out. You won't be able to help anybody. You have to have systems in place to help these people. You will get more people coming to you because you have those systems in place. We don't want to be cocky and have an attitude like, oh, I'm so good. But there's nothing wrong with the patient realizing you're a pretty busy person and you're not available at the drop of a hat. Same thing with giving away services. You should be able to give to your community. Well, I give a lot to my community, but I'm not going to give away services because when I do, the value of that service in that patient's mind goes down. And now they feel like I'm not really that valuable. And their importance of referring other people is not as important. So I don't like to give away free services, and I don't give away free services. Maybe a free consultation to explain to somebody, but I'm not giving away free x-rays, and I'm not giving away a free exam. So in business, you have to be thinking like this. You have to think about controlling those costs, but more importantly, driving the production through the roof, because there's no shortage of sick people, right? If you look at the numbers, number one ailment that human beings suffer with is chronic degenerative arthritis. It is. The American Medical Association said that the number 2 reason to be in hospitals is back pain. Number 1 is being born. Other than that, back pain is number 1 reason to be in a hospital. That's in our wheelhouse. In fact, back pain is the number 1 reason for an opioid prescription. We're trying to stop that. So there's no shortage of people who need what we do. So, you have to just get all your priorities in line and realize you have to be able to deliver these things in a successful way, and there's plenty of people who need your help. Let's talk about the viewpoint of the practice. We've done surveys. Marketing, I've learned that you need to survey an area if you're going to do a business. So I've hired survey companies, and I've had them come into town and paid them some money to be there for 3 weeks, and they'd have somebody going around and asking questions. And then we'd meet with them periodically, and they'd give us the questions and answers they were getting, and we'd tweak the questions a little bit. And we would ask people, do you go to a chiropractor? And 9 out of 10 people say no. And we ask them, why don't you go? And we get all different reasons, but the number one reason we always got, number one, is because chiropractors don't discharge. So when you look at that, you go, that means they think that we over-recommend. So no matter what we say, in the back of their mind, playing the whole time is, be careful, this chiropractor is going to over-recommend. Be careful, this chiropractor is going to over-recommend. Be careful, this chiropractor is going to over-recommend. So when you go to recommend things, they don't always do it. And then you conclude, oh, people don't do those things in my area. No, they don't do them for a chiropractor. In a medical service, this was a survey that came out a few years back. A friend of mine, Wayne Collins, shared this with me, and it was a survey that said, they asked people, what would prompt you to go to a chiropractor? And they said, if it was medically supervised or if I was referred by my medical provider. Because they believe the medical provider is going to say, okay, I know the chiropractor is saying you need more, but I'm telling you you're done. Is there truth to that? I don't know. I don't think so. But is that the way people think? Yes, it is. And as a marketer, you better understand that's how they think. So we looked at this and said, do we want to set up a chiropractic practice that has medical services? If we do, we're going to get 10% of the population. Well, I don't want 10% of the population. I want the 90%. So we became a medical clinic that has chiropractic as one of its services. One of the reasons we did that is in surveys we've asked people, what do you think of a medical doctor that works with a chiropractor? And the thought was the most common answers were negative. What's wrong with the medical doctor? Did he get in trouble? Did he lose his license? Is he doing something wrong? So there was this negative connotation of a chiropractor hiring a medical doctor. And then we said, what do you think of a chiropractor working in a medical office? And they said, it must be a really good chiropractor. Like if those medical people let him in, it's got to be like one of the aces. So our thought process was, the right way to set this model up is a medical practice doing chiropractic services as one of its services. And that way people feel more comfortable. They're coming in not for the chiropractor, so it takes the pressure off of you as the executive, the personality-driven business, and they come in for the team, the medical team. And they know the medical people are going to say, okay, so you're done. Now the other thing we make sure we do is we actually examine them and re-examine them along the way, give them reports of where they're at, and keep in view that discharge date. Let them know this is what we're shooting for, and when you accomplish this, you are done. And we discharge them. And what I found in doing that is patients had a better long-term success than when we were doing just chiropractic. Chiropractic, you discharge them and say, okay, you can come in for maintenance, and they come in like once a month. Yeah, it still hurts right here. Do it right there, God. Work on that. And there you are, like rubbing out this person's shoulder who like came in a year ago and they couldn't even lift their head up. That was, we weren't getting to the result that I wanted. In this model that we do, we get patients saying to us, yeah, I don't have a problem anymore. I completely forgot about my headaches. I completely forgot about my wrist problem, my shoulder problem, my knee problem. I didn't have to get my knee replaced. I didn't have to get my hip replaced. I didn't have to get the back surgery or whatever. So, and I was able to avoid pain management, which is what my doctor was recommending. So you put all this together, that's what we're looking for, that type of product. Looking at it again as a business person, you have to make sure that the results that you get are shared with your staff. So you need to have wins. You have to have people write down their wins that they experience coming into your practice, because what can happen to your personnel is they're dealing with people that are hurt. They're dealing with people that are in pain. They're dealing with people that have problems. And not all of those people are having problems because they got injured. Some are having problems because they tend to have problems. So it can wear your staff down. And you got that one person complaining. You got 100 patients, and 99 of them are doing stellar, and there's one of them going, I'm not getting any better. I'm not getting any better. And who's the one that everybody focuses on? That one. And that can bring your staff down, which means their ability to help the 99 gets shrunk. So they need to hear about the other 99. So you need to have every patient fill out a testimonial at the end, at least, of the care plan. And you need to ask, can I publish this? And have them sign to it. Because you don't want to share that win unless they say that. But you can share it with your staff. And if they say, I don't really want to publish it, all right, well, go ahead and fill it out anyway, because we want to share it with our staff how well they did with you. And we also want to know, honestly, did we help you or not? And then you look at those things, and you might be surprised. Once in a while, you're going to get one that says, this didn't really work, or I was ignored, or I had to wait, or this or that, or the next thing. And that's something you can improve on. So you have to have a training division that improves on those things. But you want to get that feedback from the staff. Or from the patients. You also want to get feedback from the people who don't become patients. So we have somebody assigned to call those people on a regular basis. Everybody who comes in who didn't become a patient, we call them back a month, 2 months, 3 months later to find out how they're doing. A lot of times we get to them and say, hey, you came into us a year ago and you had this problem, just calling to see how you made out with that. And we get, I still have it. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you better or worse? I'm worse. Okay, can we help you with that? I should have listened to you. Maybe I'll come back in. Okay, let me get you scheduled. And we get people scheduled by reaching back out. So you need to have at least one person who's scheduled to or trained to call these people. Now, I got to tell you, this is a tough position to be in because there's a lot of people like, I don't want to talk to you. I said no. Leave me alone. Don't call me. Take me off your list or whatever. They're going to hear that. So our rule for that patient or that employee is they do X amount of calls and then they get to walk around the office or walk around the parking lot or go out on a treadmill or go stretch on the rehab floor because it'll burn them out if they don't. It's really important for that person to hear about the people that they got back in on how well they did. So every staff meeting, you should have a portion of that staff meeting, the end of it usually, let's hear the wins of the week. And if there's no wins, you need to go back and retrain your staff on how to elicit the wins from the treatment. If you don't do this, your team is going to implode. You could be giving great service, but your team implodes because they get burned out. So you got to spend time working on your business, not just in your business. As you become bigger and bigger, it's the executive's job to do that. You got to look at stats. You got to measure how far you're going. If you're stuck in a ditch and you're trying to get the car out of the ditch, you got to put a mark where it was when you first started, and then you can see how much progress you're making. You're seeing what things helps get you gain ground and what things doesn't. And then that way you can enhance what you're doing that works and eliminate what you're doing that doesn't work. You have to look at yourself. You have to work on your business. Your business just won't survive because you want it to survive. You have to make it survive. You have to work on it, not just in it. The bigger you get, the more you have to work on it, the less you should work in it. That's just a rule of thumb in business. I covered a lot of things in the last 20 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes, so hopefully this was helpful. And hopefully you can take some of this data and apply it to your business and see some growth because that's what we want for all of our clients and anybody who watches this video. If you're in healthcare, I want you to get people well and I want you to succeed at it and grow and benefit from it. If you benefit the community should benefit you. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Mike Carberry. Talk to you soon.